Success is usually just one step beyond the point at which defeat has overtaken a man.
Mr. Hill, it's a genuine honor. I don't think anyone in the last century has had a more profound impact on our understanding of achievement. The stories you shared about Henry Ford, Edison, Andrew Carnegie, they've served as a practical blueprint for generations, a roadmap.
You're very kind, Dr. Sinclair. The truth is, I was merely a reporter, a narrator. The wisdom was always there, present in the lives of those great men. I simply tried to distill it into a simple, understandable language for the common person, for the man or woman who may have no fortune but possesses a great dream.
And you did so beautifully. You taught people that success isn't magic, it's a science. It has clear, definable principles.
Precisely. And yes, the foundation of that wisdom, in its simplest form, is exactly what you've so eloquently stated. If you wish to get somewhere, you must study the ways of those who have already arrived. See what they believed, what habits they formed, how they thought, and endeavor to apply those in your own life. It is the shortest and most certain path.
Absolutely. And that idea is so powerful that nearly a century later, it's still the foundation of most modern success books and seminars. Model the successful, emulate the greats. It all stems from that same core idea. We're all trying to learn the recipe for a delicious cake from the world's best bakers.
Because it seems logical. Why reinvent the wheel?
Exactly. But Mr. Hill, there's something that's been on my mind for a while. An aspect of our modern world that maybe challenges that principle in a new way.
I'm eager to hear it.
Of course. In simple terms, it means we hear the story of the one person who dropped out of college and became a billionaire, but we never hear the stories of the thousands who did the same thing. And well, whose lives fell apart. The media doesn't cover them. The books aren't written about them. We only see the survivors, only the heroes.
And we assume their path is the only one that exists.
Precisely. So my question isn't whether studying success is wrong, not at all. My question is it enough? When we fix our gaze only, and I mean only, on that 1% of winners, aren't we inadvertently creating a distorted, overly optimistic view of reality? Aren't we blinding ourselves to the very traps that the other 99% fell into? To put it another way, Mr. Hill, isn't the methodical, systematic study of failure the missing piece of this puzzle?
Dr. Sinclair, with that one question, you have gone straight to the very heart of the matter, to the very point that most people jump over and conveniently ignore.
So you agree with the idea?
Agree with it? I consider it a fundamental, inseparable part of the entire philosophy of achievement. You cannot fully comprehend the light unless you also understand the darkness. When Mr. Carnegie first commissioned me to discover the secrets of hundreds of successful men, I realized very early on that I could not possibly do so without understanding its opposite, failure.
So you studied failure as well?
With great obsession. I listened to the stories of their defeats just as intently as I listened to the stories of their triumphs. And I discovered that the causes of failure are far more finite and predictable than the causes of success. That is why I dedicated an entire chapter of my work to what I called the 30 major causes of failure. It is a list of warnings, a map of forbidden territory, if you will.
That's extraordinary. Because the public generally associates you with concepts like burning desire, faith, and creative visualization, not the autopsy of failure.
Because people prefer to think about the destination, not the pitfalls along the way. But a wise captain pays equal attention to both.
May I make a suggestion? Let's test this analytical tool of yours, this list of 30, on a modern example, a giant that fell. A company like Kodak. How would your list diagnose the fall of a titan like that?
An excellent choice. Kodak. Very well. Let's begin with one of the most fundamental causes, number 2 on my list. The lack of a definitely defined major purpose.
That's interesting. At first glance, Kodak's purpose seemed crystal clear, to sell film and high-quality cameras.
Did it? Or was their higher, true purpose to help people capture and share their memories? You see, there is a subtle yet fatal distinction. When the technology shifted, instead of clinging to that higher purpose, memories, they clung to their physical product, film. They became trapped by the definition of their own business.
Which is exactly what modern business professors call marketing myopia, focusing on the product itself instead of the need it fulfills. The need to capture memories remained, but the method changed, and Kodak missed it.
Precisely. Now, let us consider another cause, one that may seem peculiar at first. Number 6, the fear of poverty.
The fear of poverty? But Kodak was an incredibly wealthy empire. How is that possible?
Exactly. In very successful individuals and enterprises, this fear takes on a different form. They do not fear the poverty of money. They fear the poverty of position. They are so afraid of losing what they have that they become terrified of taking any significant risk. Their own engineer, Stephen Sasson, invented the first digital camera in 1975, but the executives buried it.
Because they were afraid it would destroy their incredibly profitable film business.
Yes, for fear of disrupting their current revenue stream, they sacrificed the future. That is the modern form of the fear of poverty within a large corporation.
So, the fear of poverty in a large organization translates to a fear of disruptive innovation. The fear that your new product will cannibalize your old one, when in reality, if you don't do it yourself, a competitor certainly will.
And that leads us to another cause, a combination of numbers 4 and 17, a lack of enthusiasm and ambition to aim higher, coupled with over-caution. When you reach the summit and stay there for decades, the easiest thing to do is to sit down and enjoy the view. The passion for climbing new peaks simply vanishes.
What we call complacency today. They were so secure in their position as the king of the analog world that they couldn't imagine a world where they weren't royalty. They had no enthusiasm to explore the new digital territory because they were comfortable in their own empire.
And there is one more key point. Number 9, the wrong selection of associates in business. When a company becomes that large, it tends to promote executives who are experts at maintaining the status quo, not creating a new one. They are excellent managers for times of stability, but disastrous leaders for times of storm and change.
That's a profound psychological insight. Their corporate culture began rewarding people who could keep the ship steady in calm waters instead of rewarding the rebels and inventors. They were blind to the digital tsunami that was on the horizon.
Precisely. You see, we have not even addressed a fifth of the list, and yet the primary roots of this colossal failure are already revealing themselves. These patterns, Dr. Sinclair, they are frighteningly repetitive throughout history.
That's incredible. So it wasn't a sudden event. It wasn't one bad decision that brought Kodak down. It was more like a disease that had been festering for years, a combination of pride, fear, and short-sightedness. And your list acted like a medical scan, revealing all of it.
A disease. Yes, that is a precise word.
Because failure is rarely a sudden accident. It is more often a slow erosion. And this brings us back to your brilliant initial question, Dr. Sinclair.
My question about survivorship bias?
Yes, you asked if studying success was enough, and here lies the answer. Studying the life of a man like Thomas Edison shows you what to do. It gives you a blueprint for building. It tells you to be persistent, to work with faith, to build a mastermind alliance. But the careful study of failure, whether it's Edison's rivals or a company like Kodak, shows you what to avoid. And in the journey of life and business, sometimes avoiding the deep pitfall is far more critical than accelerating on the straight path. You must first stay in the game before you can win it.
So, this isn't about being pessimistic or negative, not in the slightest. It's actually a brilliant strategy, a defensive shield, a hidden competitive advantage.
It is precisely that.
By studying the failures of others, you are essentially learning lessons that cost them dearly. Sometimes their entire business, their life savings, or years of their life. But you get to learn those same invaluable lessons for free.
Without suffering so much as a scratch.
It's like, before starting a dangerous journey, instead of only studying the maps of those who reached the destination, you also get your hands on a detailed report from those who got lost in the wilderness. It gives you a mental checklist of dangers. It's like you're performing a pre-mortem on your own project, using the mistakes of others to prevent the death of your own ambitions. That is incredibly powerful. This insight truly reframes the whole idea of learning. But, Mr. Hill, that brings up a practical question.
Please.
Analyzing the failure of a multi-billion-dollar company like Kodak is enlightening. But how does an ordinary person, an employee who feels stuck, an artist whose work isn't getting noticed, a student just trying to find their path, how can they use this map of landmines in their own daily life? Doesn't the sheer scale of a corporate collapse make it seem distant and unrelatable?
That is a vital question. And my answer is this. The laws of nature, whether they are the laws of physics or the laws of success and failure, operate on the same principles at every scale. The law of gravity that pulls an apple to the ground is the same law that holds a star in its orbit. The principles of failure are just as universal.
So you're saying these causes of failure apply just as much to an individual as they do to a corporation?
Exactly so. Let us review a few examples. Cause number 3 on my list: lack of ambition to aim above mediocrity. Did this only afflict Kodak? Or does it not also afflict the employee who has remained in the same position for years, making no effort to learn a new skill?
That's true.
Or cause number 8, procrastination. Did this only paralyze the executives at Kodak from entering the digital age? Or does it not also paralyze the student who puts off writing his thesis until the final desperate night?
A very familiar pattern of behavior indeed.
And one of the most dangerous, cause number 16, listening to the wrong advice. The opinions of friends who have never risked anything themselves, or the fears that family members project onto us out of misplaced love. Does that poison only infect the corporate boardroom, or does it also suffocate the dream of a young entrepreneur in its cradle?
So what you're saying is, these 30 causes are actually 30 flawed patterns of human thought and behavior. They can lead to collapse at any level, from a personal relationship to a commercial empire?
That is it precisely. This list is not merely for business analysis. It is a mirror.
A mirror. What a powerful way to put it. A mirror we can hold up to ourselves to see which of these cracks and flaws exist in our own character, our habits, and our decisions, before the whole structure comes crashing down.
Exactly. A mirror. And the greatest tragedy is that most people never look into it. They fail, they get back up, brush the dust off, and walk down the very same path that led to their fall in the first place, because they never took the time to understand the reason for their first defeat.
So how do we do that? Mr. Hill, how do we force ourselves to look into that mirror, even when we know the truth might be harsh? Is there a practical way, a specific exercise to guide us?
Yes, there is a very powerful exercise I have recommended for years. I call it the failure autopsy.
The failure autopsy?
Precisely. The steps are quite simple. First, select a failure. It need not be a national catastrophe. It could be a work project that didn't succeed, a fitness goal you abandoned, a small business you read about in the news that went under. Choose one specific subject.
Okay.
Second, place my list of the 30 major causes of failure before you. This is your instrument, your magnifying glass.
And the third step?
And third, which is the most critical step, like an impartial scientist or a detective, without judgment or blame, you go through the causes one by one and ask yourself a simple question. Did this cause, even in some small way, play a role in this particular failure? Be brutally honest with yourself. Did I procrastinate? Did I choose the wrong associates? Did I lose my enthusiasm along the way? Mark every single one that applies.
And what is the result of this process?
When you do this, something remarkable happens. The patterns reveal themselves. You no longer see failure as a vague, unfortunate, random event. You see it as a clear series of causes and effects. You find the true reason for the collapse. And the knowledge gained this way, it is the most valuable knowledge of all, because it has been paid for.
That is a completely engineered approach to personal growth. Instead of drowning in the negative emotions of failure, you convert it into analytical data, a learning opportunity. That's brilliant. So if I were to summarize this entire incredible conversation in one final image,
I would be delighted to hear it.
studying success is like learning the recipe for a delicious cake. It tells you which ingredients to combine and which steps to follow to get a sweet, desirable result. But studying failure is like taking the time to carefully read the warning labels on all the poisonous chemicals under the kitchen sink. It may not tell you how to bake the cake, but it will tell you what can poison you and take you out of the kitchen entirely. And to survive and thrive in the kitchen of life, you need both sets of instructions equally.